Chapter 3, The Case of the Civil War Sword. A boy with red hair stopped in the doorway of the Brown Detective Agency. "Are you any good at swords?" he asked. Encyclopedia did not lift his eyes from his book, How to Build a Nuclear Reactor. "What kind of game is swords?" he asked. "It isn't a game," said the red-haired boy. "My name is Peter Clinton. I want to hire you." Peter put 2 dimes and a nickel on the gasoline can beside Encyclopedia. The coins clinked. Encyclopedia stopped reading. He looked up, very businesslike. "How can I help you?" he asked. "I have a chance to trade my bicycle for a sword," said Peter. "I want to make sure the sword is real." "You don't think the sword is a real sword? Is really a sword?" said Encyclopedia. "What do you think it is?" "That isn't what I mean," Peter said. "It's a sword from the Civil War." "There are thousands of swords left over from the Civil War," said Encyclopedia. "I know," said Peter, "but how many belonged to General Jackson?" "Stonewall Jackson?" gasped Encyclopedia. "The great Southern general?" "The sword is supposed to have belonged to Stonewall Jackson," said Peter. "Bugs Meany says so." "Bugs?" Encyclopedia straightened up at the name. "You want me to make sure the sword really did belong to Stonewall Jackson?" "Yes," said Peter. "Then you'll take the case?" "I'll take it," said Encyclopedia. "If Bugs is behind the trade, you'll need help." Peter led the private detective to the Tiger's clubhouse, an unused tool shed behind Mr. Sweeney's auto body shop. The Tigers were busy racing garter snakes. Bugs made a face when he saw Encyclopedia. "So, Mr. Brains is now a Civil War know-it-all," said the Tigers' leader. Well, maybe you can tell me what Stonewall Jackson did at the Battle of Bull Run." Which battle at Bull Run?" asked Encyclopedia. "There were 2, one in 1861 and the other in 1862. "Good for you," said Bugs, grinning. "Now, don't say this sword isn't the real thing." Encyclopedia walked to the table on which the sword lay. Bugs said, "This sword was given to Stonewall Jackson a month after the first Battle of Bull Run." "If that's true," Peter whispered to Encyclopedia, the sword is worth 10 bikes like mine." 20, corrected Encyclopedia. "Read what it says on the blade," said Bugs. Encyclopedia read, "To Thomas J. Jackson, for standing like a stone wall at the first Battle of Bull Run on July 21st, 1861. This sword is presented to him by his men on August 21st, 1861. "The sword certainly has seen a lot of use," said Encyclopedia. There's a picture. "Never mind how it looks," said Peter. "Do you think it belonged to General Jackson?" Before Encyclopedia could answer, Bugs spoke up. "I sure hate to part with the sword," he said. "But Peter wants it so much, I just had to say I'd trade it for his bike." "Trade? You won't trade with Peter," said Encyclopedia. "This sword never belonged to Stonewall Jackson." All right, so how did Encyclopedia know that? Did you hear anything in the story that tells how he knew that it doesn't belong to him? Here's the solution on page 80. As soon as he read the words on the blade, Encyclopedia knew the sword was fake. The 2 clues were the words Bull Run and first. Jackson's men, being Southerners, would have called the battle by the Southern name for it, the Battle of Manassas. Bull Run was the name given to the battle by the North. Also, the sword was supposed to have been given to Stonewall Jackson in August 1861. No one could have known that there would be another battle in the same spot the next year in 1862. Only after both battles had been fought would anyone have used the word first to describe the battle fought in 1861. Oh, so that was the trick, was the word first on the sword. All right, I'm going to go on to the next chapter. Chapter 3. Is it chapter 3? They don't have chapter numbers on here. Chapter 4, sorry. The Case of Mirko's Grandson. Bugs Meany and his tigers liked to spend rainy afternoons in their clubhouse. Usually they sat around thinking up ways of getting even with Encyclopedia Brown. But today they had met for another purpose, to cheer the boy detective on. Encyclopedia and Sally Kimball were about to meet in a battle of brains. The tigers hated Sally even more than they hated Encyclopedia, and with good reason. When Sally had moved into the neighborhood 2 months ago, the tigers jumped to show off for her. She was very pretty, and she was very good at sports. In fact, she got up a team of 5th grade girls and challenged the tigers to a game of softball. The boys thought it was a big joke till Sally started striking them out. She was the whole team. In the last inning, she hit the home run that won for the girls 1-0. But the real blow fell on the tigers the next day. Bugs was bullying a small boy. He's not very nice. When Sally happened to ride by on her bicycle. "Let him go," she ordered, hopping to the ground. Bugs snarled. The snarl changed to a gasp as Sally broke his grip on the boy, Before the other tigers knew what to do, Sally had knocked their leader down with a quick left to the jaw. She punched him. Bugs bounced up, surprised and angry. He pushed Sally, and she hit him again with a right to the jaw. Bugs said, "Ow!" and went down again. For the next 30 seconds, Bugs bounced up and down like a beach ball. By the 4th bounce, he was getting up a lot more slowly than he was going down. "I'm going to make you sorry," he said, but his voice was weak, and he wore the sick smile of a boy who had taken one ride too many on a roller coaster. "So," said Sally. She moved her feet and took a careful aim. "This," she said, aiming another blow, "should take the frosting off of you." Bugs landed on his back, flat as a 15-cent sandwich. Not until Sally had ridden away did he dare get up. Sally was not content to rest on her victories at softball and fighting. She aimed higher. She set out to prove she was not only stronger than any boy up to 12 years of age in Idaville, but smarter too. That meant outthinking the thinking machine, Encyclopedia Brown. The great battle of brains took place in the Tigers' clubhouse. The two champions, seated on orange crates, faced each other. The Tigers crowded behind Encyclopedia. The girls' softball teams crowded behind Sally. That left just enough room in the tool shed to think. Everyone stopped talking when Peter Clinton, the referee, announced the rules. Sally has 5 minutes to tell a mystery. She must give all the clues. Then Encyclopedia will have 5 minutes to solve the mystery. Ready, you two? "Ready," said the girl champion. "Ready," said Encyclopedia, closing his eyes. "Go," called Peter, eyes on his watch. Sally began to tell the story. So let's see if you can figure out the mystery. The great Mirko was the best trapeze artist the world had ever seen. People in every big city were thrilled by the wonderful performer swinging 50 feet above the ground. In the year 1922, Mirko died at the very height of his fame. In Mirko's desk was found a letter. It was a will written to the circus star. The will directed that the star's money be put in a bank for 40 years. After 40 years, the money will be taken out and given to Mirko's oldest grandson. If no grandson was alive, all the money was to go to Mirko's nearest relative, man or woman. 40 years passed, a search was begun. At last, a man was found in Kansas City who said he was Mirko's grandson. His name was Fred Gibson. He went to court to claim his inheritance. While the judge was listening to him, a tall woman in the back of the courtroom jumped up. She was very excited. The woman said she was the trapeze artist's grandniece. She kept shouting that the great Mirko was not Fred Gibson's grandfather. Therefore, the money was rightfully hers. The judge questioned the woman. He had to agree with what she said. She was Mirko's grandniece, and the great Mirko was not Fred Gibson's grandfather. So there they are, sitting in the clubhouse. Now, concluded Sally, who got Mirko's money, the tall woman or Fred Gibson? Sally wore a smile of triumph as she looked at Encyclopedia. The tool shed was still. The boys looked at their shoes. Had Sally beaten them again? Had Encyclopedia met his master? Encyclopedia had 5 short minutes to solve the brain twister. Slowly, the minutes ticked away. 1, 2, 3, 4. Encyclopedia stirred on his orange crate. He opened his eyes. He smiled at Sally. You told it very cleverly, he said. I nearly said the wrong person, but the answer is really quite simple. Encyclopedia rose to leave. The great Mirko's money went to Fred Gibson. So, why did Encyclopedia say that? I'm going to put my bookmark in here. Let's find the answer. Both the tall woman and Fred Gibson spoke the truth. Although the great Mirko was not his grandfather, Fred Gibson was the great Mirko's grandson. The great Mirko, as Encyclopedia realized, was a woman. She was Fred Gibson's grandmother. Oh, so that was the tricky part, is that they never said that the great Mirko was a man or a woman. So the great Mirko wasn't his grandfather, it was his grandmother. That was tricky. Ooh, interesting. All right, see you later.